Welcome to the Conscious Love Global Summit, and thank you so much for joining us today. We are here to open your hearts and minds to a new quality of love and to share some awesome tips on how you can raise the consciousness in your love relationships to enlightened and soulful. This is such an exciting moment as our #1 book is now part of a profitable philanthropy project, and you can help us to raise funds and awareness, and you can get our #1 book and even more conscious love goodies at the same time. So please visit consciouslovebook.com/cause and tell everyone you know who would like to help and spread the word. So I am so excited. Get going with our featured speaker today. My name is Deborah Moorehead, and I'm the co-author of the #1 and international best-selling book, Conscious Love, Enlightened Relationships, and Soulful Sex. I'm so excited to have Sandy Weiner with us here today. And she is going to be helping us to raise awareness for our funds and our cause by sharing all of her. I'm just excited about all of her wisdom. She and I have got to work together before. I want to just tell a little bit about Sandy. She is the founder of The Last First Date. She is devoted to helping women achieve healthy, off-the-charts love in the second half of life. She's an internationally known TEDx speaker, dating coach, and motivational speaker. Sandy specializes in helping women communicate effectively, set clear boundaries in relationships, and increase their confidence and self-worth. She believes that a woman of value attracts her best partner. I love that. I believe that too. Sandy has contributed to hundreds of prestigious articles like Huffington Post, Psychology Today, Red Book, The Good Men Project. She is also the host of The Last First Date Radio, an acclaimed show about attracting and sustaining healthy relationships in midlife. And I've had the pleasure of being on that show with her. She just wants for you to be able to go on your last first date. So Sandy, I am just so glad that you are here with us. Thank you for being here.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. So I'm excited to hear what you have to say about conscious love relationships. I know you just have so much that you can be telling us about, and tips and great information. So I'm just going to jump into the questions. My very first question is, I would just love to hear from you. What does conscious love really mean to you?
Conscious love. Conscious love means taking full responsibility for your thoughts, your words, your actions. It also means knowing yourself and loving yourself first. And it means being open and curious and connecting deeply with a partner through all the ups and downs, not just the good times.
I like that definition. That's wonderful. I think that's the whole idea of conscious love is just where we want to be moving, because that's everything you just said. That's where you get to really create more of the amazing relationships that you really want in your life. So,
yes.
Wonderful. So tell me, why do you think that conscious love is really an important concept right now? How do you think it will have a positive impact and, even save the world moving in a positive direction?
Well, we're living in a time of disconnect, terrible disconnection in the world today. And social media has become the prevalent way of connecting, like through texting, through short little blurbs on Twitter. Yes. And that's not real communication. We are so bad at communicating face-to-face. And we also have a really, really high divorce rate. So people really don't know how to relate to one another, both, in person, and also we don't grow up with great relationship skills modeled for us. And what I've seen is that people are lonely, they're alone, they're scared, but they really, really want love. And a lot of people are afraid to say it out loud. They have no idea how to attain it. And that's why we need to teach people that to love themselves first,
Yeah.
And to love others consciously, we need to teach people how to balance chemistry and compatibility. We need to teach people to learn how to express their needs and wants in a way that's not triggered. And you and I have talked a lot about that.
Yes. Yeah, that's a beautiful way of putting that. And I like the way you started with that, because I do think in this busy world and in this, technology world, there really is a lot more loneliness, and being able to bring more ways of connecting and conscious love, that's so true. I believe that as well. Beautiful. So what challenges did you face that really motivated you to become an expert in the love field, in the dating field?
Well, I grew up in a high conflict home. My parents fought a lot, like many people. Many people grow up in homes like that, and they stayed married until we were all out of the house. So I was 29 years old. I happened to be getting married as my parents were divorcing. So it was not great timing for me, because we were kind of tiptoeing around my parents because they were not getting along. And I really vowed that I would never get divorced. Having seen what they went through, I went in choosing a husband with my head more than my heart. I thought that was the answer. I thought if you choose safe and you go in with your heart first, head first, I wouldn't get hurt, and I would guarantee that he would be there for me and be a great dad. And I stayed for 23 years in a marriage that was not great. In many ways, it was really not good. And I finally reached a point in my life where I said, enough, I have to save myself, because, I was so afraid of my kids getting hurt. And the truth is that when you save yourself and you do what's important for you, your kids receive the benefit of that too. And I became a life coach as I was divorcing. That was a part of me that was never fulfilled in the past.
Oh, okay.
So I was getting certification actually the day I moved into my new house.
Wow.
I started my certification program. I didn't get certification yet. So the whole time was very tumultuous, but it was also very exciting because I was moving towards my own consciousness. I was fairly unconscious during my marriage to survive it. And so after a few years, I woke up to conscious love. I started dating and realizing that I could be much more deliberate about what I wanted. I started reading everything out there. Then I started this radio show, Last First Date Radio, and started interviewing experts and authors who were at the cutting edge of dating and relationships, and just filling myself up with better information. And after about 2 years of coaching, I decided to focus on dating and relationships after 40 and helping other people really become so much more conscious about the patterns that they've created and to do what they can, what they have control over, because we often try to control what we have no control over, which is the other person.
Yes, very true. Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that, Sandy. I always find it so interesting. We each kind of in our own paths, our own directions kind of come to where we're at. And it is always our life experiences that help to bring us to the places that we're at.
Yes.
But it's great to just hear. And I do agree, because, you've been a part of my summits. It definitely is when you open yourself up to just to other ways of thinking about things, looking at things, that just does totally move you to a more conscious place. And so thank you for sharing.
Sure.
So we are changing the mindset around conscious love with our number one book, Conscious Love, Enlightened Relationship and Soulful Sex. What do you think are the most powerful changes around this paradigm of love and relationships at this time? And how can our listeners tap into that?
Well, it is an exciting time. I think we're becoming more conscious in general. And one of the areas that I think that has changed the most is that men are learning to express their emotions without shame. Men are often brought up to believe that crying is not good, that it's, sissies cry. And I mean, there's a lot of confusion still, because I think what happened in the women's live movement is that women became very masculine and men started to become very feminine. And nobody knows where they stand in terms of gender identification. Men want to be more sensitive, and then they're still not accepted by women who are looking for the macho man, and women who come across as this tough, I can do it all, are often emasculating to the very men that they want to attract. So that's some of the work that I do, is to help women step more powerfully into their feminine. But, it's great that they've had career success. It's great that they have balanced it all and have achieved so much. But if you want to have a really healthy relationship, there has to be polarity. There has to be a push and a pull. There has to be somebody leading and somebody following. And then it doesn't have to be the same, one gender or the other, but you have to figure out, you can't be butting heads all the time or you're not going to have a healthy relationship. What else has been more acceptable is mental illness. People talk about it very, very freely. People talk about being openly gay and transgender. So it's like we become much more open.
Yes.
And vulnerability is now on the map, thanks to Brene Brown.
Yes.
That we actually see it as a strength and not a weakness. So we're encouraged to be open. We're encouraged to connect deeply. We're encouraged to be more self-compassionate. And to be more compassionate about others. Yeah. So I think, also to be more authentic. And that to me is what really leads to the best relationships.
Yeah, that's a beautiful way of thinking about that. And I like that you bring up around Brene Brown and just the whole idea of that being more vulnerable, and that can be both, it can be both partners in the relationship. It can be the men, it can be the women. And that really is what creates so much more real, authentic, conscious relationships. And I know you and I both know this, but that's what really, it's what we're all longing for, right? I mean, the reason that we get into relationships is because we are longing for that love, that connection, being really seen and understood. And that when you can be more vulnerable and authentic and real, then you get more of that connection. So
yeah, absolutely. And it's one of the reasons why I write for the Good Men Project. It's a huge online magazine with several million views a month, and and they get a lot of women who read it. It's not just for men, but what I love is it's changing the conversation about men, for men, and with men. So I love the comments on the Good Men Project. Normally I write for women, and I really wanted to open it up, because you don't want to only stay in a little closed box, to write for men, or for men and women together, creates more of a conversation that I think is really helpful. And one of my most popular articles was about communication. What women think men want, just things that I poll in my Facebook group. I have over 500 women in there, and I'll ask them questions like, what's your biggest struggle with men? And I will write down their answers, and then I'll write my response, and then I want to hear from men. What do you think? And it just creates a powerful conversation, which I think we need to have more of those.
Yes, keep having the conversations, because that's how we learn from each other. That's how we grow. So
yeah,
absolutely. I agree. Wonderful. So what is the most powerful tool that you have for our listeners to implement right now to help them create enlightened relationships? Something to really recognize maybe when they're stuck in an unconscious love pattern. We'll start there.
Okay. So I think when you're stuck in a pattern, you want to identify the pattern. That's number one, because a lot of people don't even know. I mean, I get tons of emails from people dating narcissists. Help, I'm stuck. I don't know where to go.
Yeah.
So if you're stuck in a pattern dating toxic people for you, then journal about all of your past relationships. Take your key relationships and write about them. And then you'll start to recognize the common patterns. How were you treated? What were the red flags?
Nice.
And you want to trace the red flags back to the beginning. And I think that people often say to me, no, they weren't there. They just showed up after a year. And I say, no, you shoved them under a rug in the beginning.
Very true.
Used the red flags.
Yes.
So it's about not making excuses, because there are deal breakers that make all the positives totally null and void. So if you can't identify those deal breakers right away, you're going to keep opening up your heart to get broken.
Yes.
So that's, sometimes there's soft signs. Like I can think back to some relationships where they weren't like huge red flags, but as you're getting to know somebody, you get a little feeling in your gut.
Yeah.
So that feels a little off. That doesn't feel good. And what I teach women to do is to speak up, to ask questions, to get curious. When you're starting a relationship and something feels off, ask about it. It could be something completely different than what you think. Or it could be exactly what you think.
Yes.
So that's a good way, I think, to really journal and get clarity. And if you can't do it on your own, work with a coach or a therapist, because getting the right support is also part of how to get unstuck.
Yeah, I love that. I know this is the reason why I like working in the relationship you and I have, because I know we so agree on the same things, and I looking at those patterns, they were there, and people often they put them under the rug, they don't see them, and
I agree. I just had a client who said, no, they weren't there. And I said, okay, your homework is to do this. And she was so surprised. And she said, wow, this is such a good assignment, because they were there. I just didn't see them.
Yep. Yeah, very good. I love that. So what's some actions? I mean, you actually gave some great tips around the stuck part, but what's some actions that they can take to be even more conscious with their self-love and then love in the relationships?
So I think, I'm all about being a woman of value, and being a woman of value means you date yourself first, you love yourself first, because if you can't, I don't care how many songs you listen to that say, you don't love yourself, but I'll love you anyway. That's a song. That's not usually reality, and it's not a healthy relationship anyway to have that kind of codependency. You want a healthy relationship. So have a healthy relationship with yourself. And one of the biggest obstacles is reactivity. That jumping to assumptions, getting really stressed out about things without knowing how to process them. So a tool that I have is something that I actually just taught my son. And he was like, Mom, I don't like this. And then 5 minutes later, he was like, oh my God, this is really powerful. So what I have people do is close your eyes and put your hands over your heart and really breathe into your heart and feel your blood pumping, and just get really, really relaxed and slow down. Because what happens is when you're stressed, everything is speeding up and you're feeling overwhelmed, and you want to slow it down.
Nice.
And then you notice what's going on. So if it's tension or stress, or you're getting really angry, just notice it. And what I have people do is put it in a cloud. You want to sort of just put it in a little cloud and watch it float by. So this prevents it from going into your body and having it be you. You want to separate yourself from the tension, the stress, whatever's destructive in your life. Because if it's not in you, you'll be able to look at it and be more objective observer. Another really great way to do this is to write as a journalist about the situation. So what I just shared is something you can do in the moment, but I was in a very stressful situation with my father at one point, and it was hard for me to separate from him all the anger from the past, and just bringing all kinds of history, which is so bad for a relationship. And so we were together and he was just talking, and I took out my computer and I started just writing down everything he said. And I asked him questions like a journalist, and then I would type his answers. And I told him, I'm just typing your answers. And it gave me distance because now I was sort of outside of it. I was outside of me.
Nice.
And a lot of writing classes have people do this. They have you just be that little fly on the wall of your life.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not in it, you're outside of it. So anything you can do to remove yourself will help you to become more conscious, will help you to be more, help you process better, and calm down. Because, men say all the time that they hate drama. Mm-hmm. And what creates drama is not knowing how to express yourself in a conscious way.
Yes, very true. Those are wonderful tips. I love both of them. In the moment, and then what you can do, when you're calmer, then you can take care of that. And I spend time, and I always teach about what are called, they're like the strategies that help us to thrive. They're what we know in psychology, they're the high defense mechanisms, but one of them is self-observation. And it's that ability to get outside of yourself to be able to really look at it from a different perspective. So those are great tips. Thank you so much.
Sure.
So we're going to go on to sex. So I have a question for you about sex.
Okay.
So sex, we know, is one of the areas of intimate relationships that is definitely not been as, really made as fully conscious. It's the taboos around it or whatever else. So how can our audience change their feelings around intimacy to really create safe and soulful sexual relationships?
So I love this question because often people feel that they don't have a voice in their sexual relationship. Yes. And my suggestion is to figure out what your needs are sexually before you even meet the person. If you're already in a relationship, really figure out what works for me. One of the things I have my clients do is create an operating manual that they actually don't give to a partner, but it helps them to identify what makes me operate best. And that means, what foods do I like to eat the best? When do I like to wake up and go to sleep? Am I an introvert or an extrovert? Do I need quiet time during the day? Knowing what you need helps you to be able to speak up. So same thing with sex. So know the frequency that with which you like sex, the type of sex you like, what creates a safe space for you to have sex. And that means, that could mean you need to be exclusive. That could mean that you need to have STD testing and you need your partner to have STD testing. Figure out what it is for you and do not say yes to any type of sex that doesn't fit your needs. And have a conversation about it before you ever get intimate. I had a client once who had never been in a healthy relationship. She had always given up her power and was afraid to speak up about everything, including, are we in a relationship? I mean, she had no clue because she just was afraid. And I had her have this conversation with the new guy she was dating.
Very nice.
He thanked her. He was like, wow, that was so mature. And why can't we do this all the time? So for all the women who are afraid to have this conversation, know that a good man is going to be happy to have your clarity, your clear communication, because he won't have to read your mind, which is really important.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, around so many different things, but definitely sex, we are so afraid to speak up. And so I love your owner's manual idea, because you got to know yourself and know yourself around sex too. So those are beautiful, beautiful ideas. Thank you for sharing that. So what is the most important piece of advice that you would like to leave our audience with so that they can be more conscious in their love life?
It's hard to choose just one.
I know. It's not a fair question.
Child, right?
Yeah.
But I think I've shared many, but I think that I just watched the Tony Robbins movie on Netflix. And one of the things he says is trade your expectations for appreciation. I think that if we stopped having expectations and we learned to appreciate more, we would be so much happier in our relationships. You know, as John Gottman says, it takes a 5-to-1 ratio of positive versus negative. Yes. When you're filling your emotional bank with positivity, it's so much easier to have an argument. It's so much easier to just overlook something that your partner does because you're already filled with so much good. The other thing I think, which is such a big passion of mine, is to really not be afraid to speak your truth. To really, even if it's scary, and especially if it's scary, you want to be able to identify what's going on for you and have conversations around it and have it be a dialogue, not a monologue.
Yes.
You know, it's a back and forth, and be open to what your partner says. Nice. And be okay with the no. Like, really be okay with it, because it's not about being right. It's about speaking up.
Yes. Yeah. Wonderful. Those are both wonderful pieces of advice. I love that. So thank you so much for sharing all of your wisdom and your tidbits there. I always love the information you have to share. Tell us a little bit, where can our listeners find out more about you? You know, what's the things you have for them, and where can they find out more about you?
Well, they can go to my website, lastfirstdate.com, and I just took all my courses and created products out of them. So you can do a self-paced self-study now on how to understand men and speak up. So some of the skills that I spoke about today are taught in my courses. Nice. I always give actionable tips. As you can see, I'm all about the practical as well as the inner work. I also have a course on online dating success after 40, on how to overcome fears in dating and relationships, and also Ace the Date, which is how to succeed at first dates, which is something that people really struggle with. Also find me on Facebook, and if you're a woman over 40, go to Your Last First Date. It's a Facebook group, and it's free to join, and the conversation there is super juicy, and people are forming friendships. It makes me really happy. It's like having supportive community, and I'm talking support because if it gets really negative, I step in and, put a kibosh on that.
Absolutely.
Negativity just breeds more negativity.
Right.
So it's a great place to go and get really solid support.
Nice.
And it won't cost you a penny.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I know you've gotten some great stuff out there, your blog, radio, the Facebook, and definitely go to Last First Date, right? So yes, wonderful. So Sandy, thank you so much for being here. And this is Debbie Moorehead, the co-author of the number one international best-selling book, Conscious Love, Enlightened Relationships and Soulful Sex. Be sure to visit the consciouslovebook.com/cause to get our book, to get tickets to our live events, to access our authors' courses and our free gifts that we give away. And we've got this amazing fundraiser that is going to be happening, that you'll get to hear, the Global Summit. You'll get to hear Sandy and so many other amazing people. So thank you so much for listening and joining us today. And thank you again, Sandy.
Thank you.